Joining us now to talk about more than just colors of dresses and such at the Oscars is our friend and regular contributor. He's assistant professor of broadcasting, digital media, and journalism at Cedarville University. Welcome back, Professor Sean O'Connor.
Thank you. Good morning, guys.
I know the big headline for your students is going to be something I've brought up a few times now. Lady Gaga didn't wear makeup when she performed. Analysis, Sean O'Connor.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it draws more attention to the song from Top Gun, which was a great song, I think it's a good choice. But you guys were mentioning how you guys didn't watch the ceremony, and I got to be honest, I didn't watch either. I just looked at the winners afterwards. I haven't watched the Oscars.
It's probably a lot more entertaining just to read the stuff than listen to terrible speeches to everyone's mom and their best friend.
Yes, I did watch a few of the speeches though, and they from some of the actors that won, and it was good. The Academy Awards can sometimes be a place for people to get up there, and instead of thanking people, they make actual speeches and kind of clear themselves politically of some things. But when it's genuine and thanking people and acknowledging their colleagues, I think it's encouraging.
Now, we're going to start with Best Picture, and I want to start with who didn't win, because one of the greatest tragedies of the year was that Top Gun Maverick did not win Best Picture. Explain this tragedy.
Yeah, I think there is a world in which it could have won, but I think the thing is, and we've talked about the Golden Globes and other award ceremonies before on this show, it's like as we get closer to the Oscars, there are more of those awards that happen, and certain movies get more traction, and people say, oh, I'm going to vote for this, I'm going to vote for this. These are people like filmmakers and critics and people in the industry that are voting for these awards. And, Top Gun just wasn't, I mean, it's a great example of a movie that makes a lot of money and is a hit with audiences, but the filmmakers and critics are like, I like this one more. There's usually that disconnect.
Yeah, you need to explain that, because it seems as if the kiss of death in the Oscars is actually having people like it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing is that, and we talked last year about, I believe you mentioned the movie The Power of the Dog that almost won Best Picture, but you couldn't finish it because it was so boring and slow.
Yes.
That happens. Sometimes there's a movie that gets recognition, and then people come along and say, well, it wasn't that great. I'm going to vote for this instead. I'm going to vote for this instead. And I think with Top Gun Maverick, a very popular movie, and I really enjoyed it, and my wife really enjoyed it. But some people started saying, well, is it really that important of a film? Is it really doing anything really revolutionary?
Yes.
And sometimes, that kind of sways their opinion a bit.
I've answered yes to all your questions. It should have won. The one that Ron is really kind of in tears about is one that by title alone sounds riveting, should have won Best Picture. It's called Women Talking.
Yeah. Did you see it?
No, but it sounds boring just in the title.
I saw it back in October at a film festival, and my wife and I, instead of watching the Oscars, we watched it on Amazon Prime because it was there for the weekend for people to watch. And it's based on a book. It's a movie about these women in a Mennonite community that have been abused during the night, and the men in their community are saying that it's like, they've been either possessed by Satan or they're just trying to draw attention to themselves. Eventually, when the truth comes out that it's the men who have been abusing them during the night and poisoning them and different things, they have to make decisions about whether or not to stay in that community, stay in the faith. And actually, it's a really engaging movie about religion and faith and forgiveness and all these things that a lot of our listeners are probably going to be really interested in. So Women Talking is actually a really worth your time. It should be back on Amazon Prime maybe within the month, but it's available to rent and get on DVD and stuff now.
I got that one wrong. I thought it was about
you, Brian.
I know. The look you're giving me the whole time. I thought it was just about, a group of women chatting over tea, but clearly it's more than that.
Okay.
So now you have to tell us about the actual winner of Best Picture. I haven't seen this one. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if we've talked about this on the show yet, and it's going to be a little hard to explain, but let me try. So it's a indie film about this woman named Evelyn, who's a Chinese-American woman who runs a laundromat. She has a husband and a daughter and a father that she's living with, and she has minor conflicts with all of them. And one day they all go to do their taxes, and through certain events, she discovers an alternate version of her husband who tells her the multiverse is in danger, and she has to be the one to solve it. So it's actually like like multiverse
time
comedy
travel.
drama sci-fi
That took a turn.
movie that is a very interesting win for Best Picture, but there have been people rooting for it for almost a whole year now to get that far, and it did.
Yeah, now I'm interested.
I know, but as you're explaining it, I did not expect that turn. That was a dramatic right turn you just took in that.
It was, yeah, and that's the movie. It's this very, independently made sci-fi film by these two filmmakers who've, they started, I think, in music videos and made it change into feature filmmaking, and they're all about that kind of very. I wouldn't say art house filmmaking, but just very creative and low budget, but still. It's interesting how a movie about the multiverse comes out like that, and then the next month, Doctor Strange 2 comes out. That's exponentially more expensive and exponentially less interesting, I think, than Everything Everywhere All.
Yeah, well, and Ron is immediately searching for this thing, seeing if it's free anywhere. Now, should Christians watch this film, Sean?
That's a good question, and I think the reason why I'm not I really enjoyed it when I saw it back in April, and I think it's very funny. There's some humor, like it's rated R for some language and some sexual humor and things that rub me the wrong way, but it also asks, a lot of existential questions. Essentially, you're dealing with people experiencing the multiverse, and it causes this person to say, "What if I did something different in my life and did, made these different decisions?" Somebody else is saying, what we hear said in the Bible, the prophet says everything is meaningless, and there's this nihilistic worldview that's trying to be solved through this film. And I think for Christians, obviously, the movie's asking questions outside of the gospel that it can't fully answer. So we have to take that into account. We can't get our worldview from a film like that, but I think a lot of people are, and I think it's a good thing for Christians to at least be aware that those conversations are happening and be sensitive to them in their workplaces, and it's even for me in the film community.
Professor O'Connor, what was the surprise of the list for you in terms of winners?
Oh man, there are a few. I think one of the disappointments in some way for me, because I don't put as much stock into what wins Academy Awards anymore, to be honest, because I just enjoy the movies. But of the 10 movies nominated for Best Picture, my favorite 3, which is Tar, The Banshees of Inisherin, and The Fabelmans, won nothing last night. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, that's a bummer, because they are very good movies, and I like them more than Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won Best Picture. But, it's fine. It's just movies. I am really excited, though, that movie, Everything Everywhere, won 7 Academy Awards. That's the most any film has won in almost 10 years. Wow. Usually they kind of spread the love a little bit. Like this movie wins 4, this movie wins 3. But there were a few movies that, as a result of that, did not win anything. I was actually shocked that Elvis didn't win anything either.
Me too.
Not even like costumes or makeup or something, because there were a lot of people that responded well to that. But, it happens.
Producer Lauren and I were chatting about whether or not Austin Butler will ever get another acting job after playing Elvis so well. You know what I mean? Like being typecast or something?
Sure. Well, we'll see. He's supposed to be in the sequel to Dune later this year, and if he does a good job in that, I can see him having a big career. But yeah, it's interesting what an actor that young gets cast in a role like that. It can be damaging to them, but we'll see. Yeah. He was great in that movie, so
I thought it was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I thought Austin Butler was great in Elvis. He's the reason that I think that movie's worth seeing, and I hope he has a career ahead of him.
Yeah, he nailed it in terms of Elvis. Wow, really good. I was surprised to see, after so many years in the biz and so many types of films, seeing Best Supporting Actress go to Jamie Lee Curtis. Were you surprised to see that?
Yes. I was surprised too. Yeah, she's in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and she wasn't expected to win for a few months, and then at the Screen Actors Guild Awards a few weeks ago, she won and gave a great speech. And I think stuff like that contributes to somebody winning an Oscar, because the momentum is there around the time when people are voting for these awards, and so they say, "Oh, I really like this person, or I really like this movie. I'm going to vote for them." But I think sometimes an actor or a filmmaker or whatever, sometimes they get the Oscar not necessarily for that film, but for like the representation of their body of work, and she certainly has that. So I'm okay with that.
Now, let's go back to the three films that you thought should have won at least something, and you said won nothing. I know we've talked about The Banshees of Inisherin. Remind us of what that film's about again and why people should see it.
So that's an Irish drama about a falling out between friends, and it's a very, it's got a lot of language and things like that in it, but it's got a lot to say about relationships, and even asking eternal questions about what is it, what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind when I die, and then that kind of what kind of person do I want to be known as, and it's a comedy drama that deals with hard questions that I think if listeners have the discernment to see a film like that, it's got some language and some other things that are rated R, but I think it's worth your time. The Fabelmans is Steven Spielberg's sort of autobiographical story about his upbringing and introduction to film and his parents' divorce. That's certainly worth seeing. Tar is with Cate Blanchett as a composer-conductor who has this fall from grace, very much a character study that I enjoyed very much. Some of those films, they're not going to be as entertaining perhaps as Top Gun or Avatar or something, but I think they certainly have things to say that I appreciated.
I mean, of course, James Cameron and Avatar won Best Visual Effects. Are you surprised they didn't get anything else?
Not really. I mean, it only got, I think, 4 or 5 nominations total. And for those technical things, Top Gun did win for sound. So, I mean, those films at least got recognized for, like, those technical things. So there's some recognition there, at least.
Yeah, it's so weird. Best sound. What does that even mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just because a lot of the sound that you hear in a movie like that, especially like that with all the stunts and visual effects and things, most of it's not recorded as they're shooting the film. So like the sounds of the planes and certainly the dialogue and the music and things like that, a lot of that's added in later and mixed later, and there's a whole team of people that are doing that once the film is shot, and that helps with the experience a ton.
So Tom Cruise did not take that one home. Someone else got to do that?
He did. Right.
and then Best Costume Design. Marvel won something. Look at this. Black Panther.
Yeah, I was not expecting, because the first Black Panther also won for Best Costumes, and I thought this year, well, it's the sequel. They're not going to give it to Black Panther twice in a row. I figured that would go to Elvis, but they did, and that's okay with me, because Ruth Carter, who did the costumes for that movie, she's a legend in the industry, and I'm glad she won.
Now, before we go, I think one of the bigger sub-stories of the Oscars end of the year is Brendan Fraser's comeback, and I saw that he won Best Actor and The Whale won Best Costume, I believe. No, not Best Costume, Best something.
Makeup. Yeah.
There you go, makeup, right.
Yep.
So tell us a bit about The Whale and whether or not that one is safe for Christian audiences.
Yeah, The Whale has Brendan Fraser as a dying 600-pound man who has left his family for a same-sex relationship, and he's basically eating himself to death and trying to reconcile with the people that are still in his life. And there's actually a lot in that movie, too, about religion and the effect that religion had on him and his relationships, and the play that it's based on asks those questions, too. And it kind of, for me, kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because it's sometimes a movie like that, like Women Talking, for instance, can ask those kinds of questions about faith and have a redemptive conclusion that is also biblically sound, but The Whale doesn't, and so it can be hard to, I guess, reconcile those things. But he was great in the film, and I'm glad that he won, because again, I admire him and his overall career, and that this is a way to honor him. That I think that's great. Was
he better in this or Encino Man? Go ahead.
I did not see Encino Man. I should tell.
With Pauly Shore back 20 years ago,
yeah.
Probably 30.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, one of the other actors in that movie, Kiwi Kwan, he's in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and he won last night too. So it was cool to see him get an award.
Wow. So I guess the secret is to start off with some awkward, late 80s comedy, and then you can win eventually.
Yeah.
I think Jamie Lee Curtis did the same thing, actually.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for this week's visit from Professor Sean O'Connor, Assistant Professor of Broadcasting, Digital Media, and Journalism at Cedarville University. Remember, go to cedarville.edu for more information, cedarville.edu. And I'd imagine in the fall you'd love to see more students wanting to study film and broadcasting in your department, huh?
It would be awesome. Yeah, we'll have some visit days coming up the rest of the semester. Feel free to come down and check it out.